Again, that's how God set things up in the New Testament. And man has probably thought, well, we can do a little better, right? We can figure this out. Maybe with Skype, we can have elders over some church over on the other part of the world. But again, it's not scriptural, and that's not how God intended things to be. Yes.
Even the advice they gave was advice asked for by that other congregation.
Right.
They didn't per se volunteer any advice.
Definitely. Yeah, and they were there trying to help, but they had no authority to make them do anything, or for example, right? Okay. So again, that's important to point out, because that's not how a lot of the religious world is set up. A lot of the different religious organizations that we find. But if we want to be the church that is patterned after the one found in the New Testament, and be the New Testament church, that's important to understand. We also know that there are elders that are called shepherds. All these descriptions of the elders really point out the various responsibilities that they serve, that they provide for the congregation. And they're to be shepherds. What does that bring to your mind?
Herded sheep.
Right. And they're caring for the sheep, right? And we know that shepherds are very attentive to the whole flock.
Yes.
And remember, we find examples in the New Testament about one lost sheep. They're very concerned about that one that's lost, as well as the rest of the flock. And so shepherds are to be attentive. They're to care deeply for the church, and that's what elders do. We also know they're called overseers in Scripture. What does that describe?
Like a foreman in the job. He oversees the running of the factory or whatever. The elders oversee the running of the church.
Right, definitely, and that's a great way to describe it. Right, they over the. Okay, I'm not going to add to that because that was a good description. All right, they're also called pastors. I'm not, as a minister, a pastor. There have been preachers, and there are in the Brotherhood, that are also elders, and they would be pastors also. That's a very common misconception that some people have. In the community where I'm at a hospital or whatever, there are people that call me pastor, and if it's the appropriate time, I'll tell them, just call me a preacher, and I don't want to embarrass them, really, because most of them are trying to be kind. But if I can help them and instruct them a little, I do. But again, there have been some. George, when he was preaching here for a time, he was an elder, so he would have been a pastor at that time also. And so we know they're referred to in that way. Any other terms? Bishops would be another term that you'll find in the New Testament for an elder. Any others that I'm missing right off the top of your mind? No? Okay. I know there are a few others. We also know deacons are servants within the church.
Yes.
And there's some examples of that in Acts chapter 6. Some have asked whether those men that were appointed to take care of the widows were deacons or not. But they did serve the purpose of what deacons did, so that's why some conclude that they were. But they were, again, appointed for a specific task. We also find deacons mentioned in 1 Timothy chapter 3. And we also, again, they were specifically servants. Are they junior elders?
No.
They never should be seen that way. I've heard that term used before. Okay, not every deacon will become an elder, of course, right? And not every elder has necessarily been a deacon in the past. Many of them have, but not everyone will. But again, when you think of deacons, they're servants in the church, and they're vital to the way the church works together. And one of the things that deacons specifically can do, let me ask you, what can they specifically do? How are they to assist in the overall everything that happens within a congregation of the Lord's church? How are they different than the elders? Maybe I should ask. Go ahead.
They assist with the older people that have no one to help them. Maybe help them get food or clothing or whatever it may be. But
that's okay. Anybody else have some things to add?
Well, they have different qualifications than the elders.
Yes.
And so their qualifications qualify them to do certain things, like take care of members. A lot of times they see about finances, things of that sort. Whatever the elders delegate
Definitely, right? And in many ways, they assist the elders, and some things they do so that the elders may not be overburdened with those things and can be concerned about what their responsibilities might be specifically. David?
Well, they're also charged with the spiritual part of their membership. You know, like overseeing the people, if they have been here for a while, you know, and wondering what's going on.
Okay.
Maybe counseling if their spiritual welfare.
Okay, and you know, one of the important things to mention though is that there's nowhere in Scripture we find that even elders, deacons, ministers, or evangelists do all the work that needs to be done within the local congregation. I think that Weber understands that, and we have many members involved in a lot of it, a lot of things, a lot of programs, a lot of things that you do as members. But sadly, there are some congregations that really struggle with that. You know, where everything is put on the shoulders of perhaps the minister, especially if there are no elders or deacons. I've known some here not too far from Corpus Christi that they just got burned out because they didn't have anybody to help with anything, literally. And that's a really hard thing to do. But every member is involved. Like David mentioned, I thought I'd point that out. Every member should be involved in the lives of other members, especially those that may have slipped away or maybe having difficulty in their life. It's not just the responsibility of leadership to be attentive to them, but of every member. And that's kind of interesting when you go in the New Testament and you find how often we're told to look after one another and provide for one, forgive one another, encourage one another. Those aren't commands, I don't believe, any of those places, just to the leadership. You know, those are given to the church, to the members of the church. And so, again, I know many of you understand that well here at Weber, and it's something we should continue to work on, of course.
And Mark,
Yes.
they don't have the authority that the elders do.
Right, right. Yes, they don't have, she said, the authority that the elders do. And that's a good point to make. I guess that's second bell, right? I think it is. Okay, let you go here. We're going to have a devotional in just a few minutes when the kids get in here. But until then, thank you very much for your input tonight. We'll finish this up next week.